Hello.
What's up?
Sorry, I have a little bit of feedback. I just was just double checking if the people everyone can see us all right, everyone
Yeah.
can hear
All
us
right.
all right. Let me see comments. Yeah, comments are going strong.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think people will start coming in very soon and start asking questions and stuff.
For
But
sure.
Jeremy, it's a pleasure to have you here, man.
Thanks,
Like, thanks
Harvey.
a lot for
Yeah.
taking.
No. Yeah. No. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah. No, it's great. So, just a little bit of background. Like
Yeah.
I saw the teaser for your short, right?
Right.
The Box
Yeah.
Assassin,
hmm
and I actually I thought it was an amazing idea, like
Thank
an
you.
assassin coming out of boxes.
Yeah.
I thought it was an amazing idea, and then the execution that you did on that short when it first came out,
Right.
it was great, especially when they actually go a glove box. It's
Right.
like, oh shit, there's also a box.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I thought it
No.
was amazing, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad it was a bit of a surprise because in earlier versions it was originally, the story changed some, but originally it built up to the pizza box, and that was kind of the climax. But I changed the story a little bit later, and so yeah, I'm glad you were surprised. So
Oh man, it was so good.
yeah.
So yeah, like for all those that don't know you,
Mhm.
why don't you introduce yourself and like
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about like your passion for animation, where you started, how you got here?
For
Because
sure.
now you're an animator at Dreamworks, right?
Correct. Yeah, I just started a couple weeks ago. Just finished training and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's exciting.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
congratulations.
man. Thank you. Yeah. So my name's Jeremy. I just graduated from Ringling College of Art and Design like a couple of months ago, back in May.
Yeah.
And it was around everything happening with like the pandemic. So I was actually at home when I graduated. So there was really no graduation. It was just like you're done. Um,
Yeah.
but it was cool. I got to finish my film still. I was still able to work on that. But yeah, I went through Ringling and I learned a lot there. And even before Ringling, I was really, into movies and animation and stuff. I was probably more so into like live action. I was really interested in like cameras and film. And then I started to discover like animation online, like a lot of YouTube channels. Actually, YouTube is like a huge part of how I got into this. Like everything I learned from YouTube channels like Freddie W, Quarter Digital, um, a lot of guys like that do
Yeah.
filmmaking on YouTube.
Yeah, of
Um,
course. Yeah.
and then eventually, like, there's like CG Bros, and when I was in like high school, middle school, I found like cool short films. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of led me to going to Ringling and like pursuing animation. And so yeah, since I was at school, I just, you kind of choose a specialty in school. I mean, there's generalists today, but I found that animation was kind of the thing that was most interesting to me and just like challenging in a fun way.
That's
So yeah, so I pursued that, and with my thesis film, that's what every student does at that school is you make your senior film.
yeah.
And so I still enjoy filmmaking as a whole, like I said, even before school. So when there was an opportunity, to do that, I've been really excited about that. So I got to
Yeah.
animate and model and do everything. But it's cool now too to be at DreamWorks and be able to focus on animation and just
Animation.
do that for a little bit. So
Nice, man.
yeah, it's been amazing. It's been a crazy ride, but it seems to
Yeah.
be paying off and working out. So yeah.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah, the reason why I thought it was super interesting to bring you here is because, like, for all animators out there that like trying to get into movies, into film,
hmm
or games for that
Right.
matter, like sometimes it's difficult to actually have that story that you can be like, look, this guy made it. You can also make it, right?
Right. Right. 100%.
Yeah.
I think even for me, something challenging going in was like I said, I was more interested in like film and stuff, and I didn't have a strong drawing background. I think
Yeah.
like a lot of people going into school and even going in animation, it's like, oh, I've been drawing since I was like 5, and
Yeah.
like they're like amazing, like all and so the first year at Ringling is actually all art fundamental classes, and
Right.
so you're just doing figure drawing, you're just doing sculpting, you don't touch a computer really.
Right.
Um, and for me, that was kind of intimidating. I actually, I really was really close to leaving school after the first year.
Wow.
Yeah, I just like I wasn't doing amazing in my classes. I was talking to my parents, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not sure. I was like, maybe I can do like something in business or like
Yeah.
something else. And
Completely.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, honestly, just like change. Like I still liked. I was just like, I don't know, maybe I should do something else. I was just really close, and it was like the day before going back to school, and like my dad still thought I wasn't going back, but I was like, no, I'm gonna give it another shot. Um,
Nice.
and when I went back, that's when we jumped into Maya and stuff that year. And so for me, it was just, I get what you're saying. It was intimidating because, I had been trying to draw and get better at drawing, but I still
Yeah.
to this day am not like an amazing draftsman. And sometimes I felt like that's what was required. But then I heard more people being like, yeah, there's people in the industry that don't know how to draw at
Yeah.
all.
For sure.
And so it's just like you don't have to worry about everybody else's journey. Just like be focused on what you want to focus on. And I think having realistic expectations too, but also just don't be distracted and try to copy someone else's path of like I think I thought that I had to become a master figure artist drawing and have like the coolest sketchbook at
Yeah.
school in order to be an animator. But
That's
I
it.
didn't have to do that. I just had to
That's
just
exactly
follow
right.
my own thing. So I totally get what you mean. It's tough,
Yeah.
especially when you're I was from Kentucky and just there's not a lot of like industry around there. There's no animation companies. Like I didn't know anybody. So it took a lot of like talking and looking online and YouTube videos to discover like, oh, there's more out there than just what's at the surface level. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fascinating to me. By the way, for everyone in the chat, is the audio coming through okay? Let
Oh
us know
yeah.
if you have any technical issues.
Yeah.
Um, and hi, jump over cliff.
Yeah.
Nice to see you here, Aris, Aaron, all everyone here. Feel free to drop your questions for anyone, Jeremy or myself,
Yeah.
here in the comments, and then we'll actually answer them live here. Obviously, Jeremy has a really interesting journey, and he just made it to the industry, so it's really cool to actually kind of see someone like fresh. Like I still remember perfectly when I first started, like
Really.
after wanting it for so long.
Were you at a traditional school or did you do like an online school?
Not even like it's like yeah, it's a good question. Thanks for
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I actually started studying in a university in West London,
Okay.
um, and we were the guinea pigs in a way
Nice.
of animation. So there was an animation course. They call it animation specialist. There was nothing specialist about the course or animation
Really.
for that matter.
Really. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, like I actually did that course because it's the only one I found in London.
Right.
So I did that for 3 years. I didn't really learn a lot about animation. I learned about Maya.
Gotcha.
I then learned animation properly later with Jason Ryan. I don't know if you're familiar with Jason
Don't
Ryan.
think so. No.
No, like he's like a founder of one of the founders of Animate, and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
also worked at Dreamworks for a while and
That's
Disney
awesome.
before that. Yeah. So yeah, he actually kind of mentored me for about a year and a half, and
That's awesome.
learned my animation from there. But
Mhm.
that's kind of how I started. But then it took me about 3 or 4 years for me to find my first job.
Really. Wow.
So yeah, yeah. So the fact that you actually kind of made like you finished university or
Mhm.
while you were doing your course, your university college, you did your short, and after you got your short, you got your first gig, right? DreamWorks came
Yeah.
knocking.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. So I
Can you
mean, yeah,
tell
it's
me a little bit more about that? Because that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm super thankful for it. I think they took a bit of a chance on me even just coming out of school, and so I'm thankful for that too, just for them to make that decision and stuff. But I think, yeah, like I mean, it was actually interesting before I released the short film online. Like I accepted the job the day before I released it online, so it was
Mm.
weird because I accepted that job and then released it, and then it got a lot of attention and stuff online. So
Yeah,
it was a lot happening at once.
that's
But
cool.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think part of what they maybe saw in my work and saw in my reel was just at school. I tried to treat the projects um, as almost little short films and
Yeah,
like really, I think some of my projects, if there's older ones, and like at my school, you have to do everything in the pipeline. It's kind of a generalist school, to be honest. Ringling is very much so a generalist school.
yeah,
I wouldn't say they have a computer animation program. That's what I majored in. That's what I went through.
yeah,
But you do everything. It's not, and you don't get to like say like, well, I just like to focus on animation.
Yeah.
Like you have to, like for your projects, you model the character, you rigged it, and then you texture it, and then light it, all of it. And
And
so
that was just you, or was a team of people with you?
it's just me. It's just
That
me.
was
Yeah.
just you,
And
right?
so yeah, and for all your projects, for your senior thesis film, you can work in a group of like 2 to 3 people, or just do it alone. So I just did it alone. But even the projects leading up to that, you're
Yeah.
just doing it by yourself. And so I think that's great for a lot of places in the regards of like you learn the pipeline and you learn the tools. So it's
Yeah.
like when I go somewhere and when I'm just in conversations, I understand generally. I don't feel super lost. I don't just know how to open the software, and I
Yeah.
think that's valuable when working in a company or studio. You're aware and you can be a part of conversations, not just like chatting social, but like if there's a problem, oh, there's a problem with this rig, and I can kind of diagnose it. So I think that's helpful.
That's
But
super. Agree.
yeah, and so I think they like that. I think a lot of companies like that. But again, a lot of companies nowadays, I think, are looking for specialists
Yeah.
in your discipline.
Yeah.
But even so, the interesting thing is, I think sometimes people are like, if you want to animate, like just animate, like don't do anything else.
That's it.
And it's like, while I agree with that, and yes, I was kind of forced to do everything, but I don't think it was a bad thing. And in my opinion, I would almost encourage people to kind of play around with a few different things.
Yeah.
Because it's like when DreamWorks saw one piece that I did where they liked the camera work and the animation. So they liked how, I was able to think in a cinematic sense, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's not just a locked off shot
Yeah.
and I'm animating for 10 seconds. Like there's 10 different shots and they're sequenced together and it tells a story. So I think they also appreciate that you're thinking in that sense and you're aware of that. So I
Yeah.
think that was a big deciding factor for me, I think, as far as just choosing me for the
Sure.
position.
Sure. No, and I can see like in your short, like the fact, like the tenacity that it took for you to do all this by yourself,
Yeah.
and the storytelling and the fact that all your shots are really well composed and you've done all the animation and all that stuff. It's great. And what you mentioned about like actually knowing more than one thing, I think you're completely right, because what was required, directing in games is the same exact thing, right?
Really?
You have to actually
Yeah.
talk. Yeah, you have to talk about all kinds of things, engine related, and that relates to other departments.
Right.
And fully, they expect you to know a little bit about it, so you know exactly what's going on.
Gotcha.
And whenever you will get asked the question about which way do you want to go, left or right,
Mm-hmm.
for you to actually take an informed decision based on what you know, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you're completely right about that. Like, even though big studios, AAA studios, they actually hire for specific in animation only or rigging only or whatever,
Right.
it's very useful for you to know much more
Mm-hmm.
than just animation. At
Yeah.
least be curious about it and actually have some kind of understanding about it.
Yeah.
That pays off in the future. And it also depends on how ambitious you are as well, right?
Yeah.
Because some people just like to sit there and animate, and they just like are really good at that, and they don't
Right.
want to do anything else, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for you to get to that level, and I think that's what DreamWorks probably saw in you, whenever
Mm-hmm.
you to get to that level, you can direct the whole movie and you can just do what you've done, but magnify that with another 100 people.
Right.
Right. You know what modeling takes, what rigging takes, what animation takes, compositing, lighting, all that stuff. So you can go to those departments, hopefully in the future, when you get to
Yeah.
direct a DreamWorks
Yeah.
feature. You can go
Way
to those
down the line.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can go to those departments and be like I want it more this way instead of that way for this
Right.
reason. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, it's just, I think it's super, super helpful in that regard. And I think even just like, yeah, having those conversations and stuff, I've heard from people at DreamWorks that that's important to have. And so, yeah, it's even comes to, I was trying to think, what was I thinking of? Like, it left me. What was it?
Lost your thought.
Yeah, I lost my thought. I don't know, man. I forgot. But
no worries.
yeah, I don't know. It'll probably come back to me in a second. But it was in regards of like working on your reels and all that stuff. But yeah. It's
no
all good.
worries, man. We're getting some questions now.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, sure, we got one. Let me see.
Maybe chromosome.
Chromosome.
You see that? How long did
it? Yeah.
take
How
you?
long did that short film took to make? Did you have class at the same time? Did you get?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And that made me think of what I was thinking of before, which was, I'll just touch on really briefly, is it's interesting. It's like you said, you started out and you just kind of learned Maya,
Yeah.
but you didn't learn how to animate. But like, it's like looking back, like it wasn't a terrible thing that you
No,
learned.
no, no.
Like you didn't like, so I think
Yeah.
for me, like when I was starting out, I was looking for like the immediate answer. I was like, how do I animate? How do I do this?
Yeah.
Versus just diving into it and just learning something. And like when I was in high school and stuff, like I dived into 3D software. Like not everything I did was the right way,
Yeah.
to get to be an animator. But I learned a lot just by like downloading the software and trying it out. Like I became more familiar with everything. So like
Yeah.
I think that's to people just starting out. Like don't try and find the perfect thing to do, the perfect software, the perfect course. Just like jump into something and start
Yeah.
learning. And it'll inform everything else after it.
Completely,
That's
man.
just what I've felt with my journey so far.
Yeah, it's part of the journey, right?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, that was what I was thinking of earlier. But
Nice.
how long did it take to make? It took, I guess, a year for production, and then like 4 months for pre-production, like storyboarding, character design, all that stuff. But yeah, the actual film took about a year,
A
and then
year.
yeah. Because I mean, like in the U.S., I don't know if like European schools are different. Like we have 4-year schools and then like 2 semesters. That's not how it works over there, right?
No, we just have
Yeah,
three
yeah.
3 years straight.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it's different. So yeah, it was that, and then I had class at the same time. I was a full-time student, and yes, I had teachers that gave me feedback. I think that's a huge part of why it got better and why the film is as good as it is. It's not, I'm doing all the work and putting in the hours,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I had a teacher, I had a professor that was part of my class, and I had other people like mentors, people I trusted that I would send my work to and get feedback from. And I don't think I could stress how important that is, to your journey and to everything. It's just like I was always looking for notes and for feedback. And it's tough. I think that's probably the hardest part about learning and at that school is just learning to embrace getting feedback,
Yeah.
and then trying to not take it personal, which is easier said than done. It's just like it's tough sometimes when you've worked on something for a long time and then you show it and they're like, that's, you need to redo it. It's just like, oh man. So
It
it's a
hurts.
tough balance. It hurts. So it's just finding that balance and then finding those people too that you trust, that you feel like they'll give you honest feedback, helpful feedback, but not bring you down to the point where like you don't want to work anymore, because it's just tough to find those right people. So
Yeah.
I would say yes, that was a huge part of making the short film, and I would encourage you to reach out to people and try and find people to help you in that regard.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, yeah, I'm like mentors and like people getting feedback. I couldn't stress how important that is. I think it's huge.
For
So,
sure. Did it
yeah,
felt to you when you were asking questions to your mentors and that they were almost like a shortcut for you to get to your goals faster because of their experience?
I think so. That's a good way of looking at it. It's like people like judging whether or not school is worth it, and like was like Ringling the school worth it for me? I think the biggest thing is like a school or something like that. Like it provided structure for me. I'm a bit of an unstructured person sometimes. Like I can toil in things, and it's tough. Like if you're at home just trying to learn something, it can be tough. So I think like that provides structure of just like you have to finish this in a year, and then it's like, all right, I have to finish this in a year. Now there's a deadline.
That's it.
And then teachers and like professors and mentors, I think it definitely does that. I think, I don't think that, like, yes and no, because it's like just because you go to a school like that
Mhm.
and you ask a teacher like, how do I animate better, that's a tough question. It's like, well, like I'm not really going to give you a shortcut to that, but yeah, they can give you useful and helpful information for sure that I think can help get there faster. But again, the faster part still comes from you putting in the work.
Yeah.
So it's like yes and no. It's like you just can't, yeah, because I think even like the first year is a good example. When I went to this school the first year, I'm like, oh, I'm going to take drawing courses. I'm like, I'll be amazing at drawing. And then like, I wasn't amazing. And then I went to the school and I still wasn't amazing. And I was like, like it still takes years of practice. You got to put in the time. So
Exactly, man.
I think teachers and stuff, mentors, 100% will help you. Like, I think they'll almost help you navigate what you're running into issues faster. You'll be like, oh, I didn't see that. And then you have to put in the time. But yeah, when you're by yourself, you're kind of just, you hit the same wall and you don't understand why. So I think maybe that's a good way of looking at it. But I just think it's a bit dangerous to look at it like, oh, this person has the answers that I need to get where I want to go, versus they're going to help me get there. But I'm still going to have to put in the work. I think it's just an important distinction.
And something to mention there is that, like, whenever people ask me for advice or mentorship or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like, what I say all the time is, like, you have to help me help you.
Right.
And I think that's actually, well, a lot of people look at certain, and yeah, with the more years you have, the more you actually experience this as the answer to all questions.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have you next to me, then it means that I'll automatically be a better animator because I
Right.
look at this person. So now I have access all the time to this person, and therefore I'll actually excel.
Right.
And not that way. It's more like, from my perspective, when I see someone, for example, like you, that is willing to put in the work and is naturally talented and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you actually have a tendency to actually want to help them more,
Right.
because you want to kind of get rid of those obstacles from the person, so they can actually achieve their goals better.
100%. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because you're doing the work already, you're doing everything right. You just kind of like, I've had walls that I've hit that I don't want you to hit, so that
Right.
let me take those walls off and just give you a runway to actually run into,
Yeah.
or run towards. And that's beautiful to me. Like, whenever I actually get any animator that kind of like does something spectacular and just like gets out there and gets a job,
Mm-hmm.
incredibly satisfying to actually see that, to actually be a mentor to someone else. It's much more satisfying than any animation I've done before.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I totally get what you mean. I think I've experienced a little bit, like at our school, even like upperclassmen. Like when I was starting out, upperclassmen, I got feedback from them.
Yeah.
And when I got into my senior year, I was up there. I tried to help out people too, and I did notice that. Like when I would help people, and I noticed that they just kind of ask a question, and then like they just kind of leave. It's just like, but some people, they were persistent. They would like do their work and like do another pass, and then they'd be like, take a look at it, almost to the point where like it's a lot. You're like, oh, slow down. But like at the same time, I appreciate that. Like that's who I want to help, is someone who's like they're hungry for it. And then you're just like, yeah, like I'd love to help you because I see that you're really passionate about it. But some people, they just want a quick answer, and I think that's when it's like I can't really help you in that way. It's
Yeah, and it becomes problematic as well for their future, because, like, if they already kind of like have that attitude from the get-go,
right.
like, how are they going to behave or act or work in an environment like Dreamworks, for example, right?
Right. Yeah.
Over there, really, you don't have any walls to protect you from like in Ringling. I'm guessing you had teachers to tell you, like, less of this, more of that,
Right.
etc.
Right. Yeah.
When you go to a place like Dreamworks, they expect you to be professional and just like animate or do
Yeah.
as others do.
Yeah.
So there's no one to actually kind of help you out and take you by the hand.
Yeah.
And if people have that attitude from an early stage, and then it's almost like a setup for failure in a way. And it's
100%.
something that I actually highlight. And is horrible to say, but is the reality of the industry. I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's really tough, especially if you think it's tough when you're studying. It gets even tougher when you become a professional animator.
Really. That's
Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard many different takes on that. Some people are like, oh, it gets better, or it gets like it's even harder. So I'll let you know, Harvey, in a couple months.
Well, yeah, exactly. We just got started.
But
So,
yeah,
how are you finding it? How are you finding it right now at Dreamworks?
it's good. It's really good. I think in some ways, it's better in the regard of like having a bit of a limit. You're not going in, with the film. It's like I was working 24 hours a day on it, as much as I could. Not literally 24 hours a day, but around the clock, it's on your mind. With work, at least you have a bit of a time to step away. And I think there's times for putting in a lot of work and crunching and getting it done, but there's times to rest. Otherwise, you're just not even going to be an artist. You're just going to be burnt out. So I think it's nice because at Dreamworks, I'm training and I'm getting in, and so I'm having a bit of the balance and able to do some things in life and just because the past 4 years have been brutal. So it's nice in that way, because I just feel like that there's a balance. And sometimes I probably err on the side of pushing the balance to a little working harder, but it's just like you just can't always be doing it, because it's like, especially if you're in some other aspect of just like writing or like telling stories, it's like, how are you gonna just write if you've never even like stepped outside your door and like outside? You know, I think you have to have some sort of experience. So
Sure.
I think it's been nice to just take a step back a little bit in that regard.
That's great.
But as far as DreamWorks goes, it's been great. They have their own proprietary software. So I'm not using Maya, which I was scared of at first, but it's actually been really great. They have it's called Primo, and they have it's just for animation. It's kind of Maya with everything else stripped away.
Yeah.
And also it's like real-time playback. So you don't have to ever like, you play blast kind of still, but you don't. Yeah, it's always like 24 frames per second.
24, all the time.
It's nuts. So that's been really cool, and I feel like that's able to help me work a bit faster.
That's cool.
But everyone there has been fantastic. I think DreamWorks is an interesting place. I think they have a lot of experienced veterans there, just people that have been in the industry for a long time. Sure. And they haven't hired as much recently. So it's been, because I'm going in here and like there's not as many younger hires. I think they're starting to now, but all these people, they've been working on stuff for years, and I just look at their work and they're all like legends. I'm like, why am I here? So, but they're all super nice. So it's been great just to be around them and talk to them and get feedback. It's a really good place. So
that is so cool.
Yeah,
it's funny though, because even though we work in different industries, that feeling of like newness when you get into the industry, it's very unique, and you only get to experience it once.
Right.
But yeah, I get to experience it through others, and it's always cool to actually kind of be like around people that were like, wow, I'm working now. I'm working with these people and all that stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
It feels really cool, man. Because even as someone that has been doing it for a while, you kind of look back and you just kind of you can feed off that stuff. You're like, I cannot be complacent. That now that I'm here for a while, is like, oh, I just job, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a dangerous thing. Something that I'm just starting, but trying to be aware of. I don't want to be that person, 5-10 years from now that's like, work, just do it. It scares me to be in that place. So definitely I'm trying to be aware of that. But also it's all been remote. So that's been weird too. I mean, everything happened. Yeah. So I haven't actually been to the studio yet.
Yeah. Someone just asked that actually.
Really?
This. Yeah, you having to work remotely.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, it's all remote. I mean, I'm just, I roll out of bed in the morning and walk over to my desk, and there it is. And it's all Zoom calls all day to get notes, which, it's not terrible. I think in animation, it's like we use Sync Sketch. So like, we're kind of like, I'm used to that. I've sent my work to other people on Sync Sketch. They do drawovers, give me notes, type out notes. So it hasn't been like a total shock, but it is weird because I haven't actually met in person like my supervisors or anyone that are with me. So that's I look forward to going back and meeting people and being in that kind of studio environment. They also have like free lunch on campus, so that'll be nice. Cool. I don't get that. I don't get that right now, but I think just that has been a bit different. Maybe it feels a bit more like freelance versus like going into a studio and like being in that kind of environment. I mean, you probably speak more to that, but I think it's just there's a different vibe to that. So,
and do you feel because I'm guessing you're doing your short, you're doing it from home as well, right?
At first it was at school. I think the pandemic thing happened in March and I finished in April, so I only had to work from home for like 2 to 3 months.
Right.
But I did have to do it some and like send my work to my professor, and then he would send me back a video critique. So I did a little bit of it for sure.
So now that you're working at Dreamworks, just curious, now that you're working at Dreamworks and you're still in the same setting,
right?
You feel almost like you're just doing the same thing, but just in a bigger picture,
a little bit, to be honest. Yeah. And it kind of feels bad to say that, but it does. It's just weird because you're still I'm still on my home computer. It's like I'm looking at the same screen. So it does, but it's still definitely, it's not in a bad way. Like I still open up. I'm like, oh man, this is like Boss Baby. This is like this character. Like it's on my screen. I'm like, that's super weird. So in that
Yeah,
regard, it's crazy. So it's a little bit of both.
yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, I'm just trying not to get complacent to be like, oh, I'm at home, because I feel
Yeah,
like you could get complacent there too. So it's tough. It's a little bit of a battle.
yeah. No, I get you. Like for me, from my standpoint, I actually started in this company that I'm working on 6 months ago or so.
Okay.
I even though I've been to the office because I interviewed there before the pandemic,
Right.
I really I didn't really go to the office just yet since I started 6 months ago.
Gotcha.
So I've met my team because we met up in the park here not long ago.
Right.
If it wasn't for that, I would have not met anyone. And
Really?
yeah, I work exactly in this computer that I'm talking right now, and
That's crazy.
from setting and
Yeah, but it was probably nice to see everybody like that. Just like put a name to a face and have that little bit of physical interaction.
oh, for sure, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, the only thing people know of you nowadays is this. This is as much as they know you. Like you don't even know how tall people are nowadays.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So yeah, no, it feels really good. And I consider myself an introvert. I think like most animators, but even for myself, I'm like I miss people. I miss hanging
Yeah.
out with people. I miss
Yeah.
going out. I miss like just chilling.
I get it. No, I'm 100% the same way.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, in some ways I don't miss it because I'm also introverted. But again, I need some of it. Yeah, I think everyone does,
everyone does.
just being human. But it's just like, yeah, I think I don't mind going to work and seeing people in the morning, saying hi,
For
and
sure.
being in that environment, a creative environment where you feel like, oh, this is where I'm working, this is where I'm getting stuff done. Like that. That to me is a really nice feeling.
Yeah,
So I get what you mean.
yeah,
It's
man.
tough. I think everyone's having a tough time with it. So hopefully
Exactly.
things are get better soon. I don't know.
Hopefully, I really hope so.
We'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
been
the one
crazy.
thing I think the thing that like at least is in my team that people miss the most is that feeling of like standing up and looking at someone else's computer
Hmm.
and being inspired by what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like you're working on your stuff, as you know, you're working on your shot and it takes you weeks to actually kind of finish the stuff or
Hmm.
whatever. To just stand up and go to someone else's computer and be like, man, what are you working on?
Uh-huh.
And what is that? And normally you have the artists and the sound designers and all that stuff, and you
Right.
can go have a walk and bother them and be like, can I hear that? And
Right.
like the
Right.
people now sound better.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
stuff is actually pretty cool. I always enjoy that, and it's a shame that we cannot do that anymore.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get that. And I've been at home working for 2 days, but then I'll pop into dailies. And I mean, that's like the closest thing to it. Just
Right?
getting to see other people's work. I'm like, oh, you've been doing that at home for the past 2 days. I'm like, that's cool.
That's
So
cool. Yeah,
that's yeah, the closest thing to it. But I totally get what you mean.
nice one.
It's a nice
Nice.
thing.
So Chromosome asks another question. I'm
Okay,
curious
cool.
about your pipeline now from concept to final product. How was the process? I'm guessing this relates to your short, most likely.
I'm guessing so. Yeah. Um, with that, it wasn't an insane pipeline. I mean, it was mostly Maya. As far as everything goes, like characters were modeled in ZBrush, retopoed in Maya, rigged in Maya, and I used like an auto rig kind of setup. So it
Yeah.
like it places the bones and stuff, and then you like paint the weights yourself and do blend shapes. Um, and then did layout in Maya. And I use like in Maya, there's a few different ways to do layout. And
Hmm.
especially at our school, they teach like to do every shot, at least like in the beginning, like they teach to do every shot in its own scene starting out. But like I was at Disney this last summer, I guess. Yeah, last summer.
Yeah.
And I was a CG artist intern there. So I got to do like layout and animation, like those two things I kind of focused on. So they use Maya at Disney, and I learned how to use the sequence editor, I think it's called, or something like that.
Camera sequencer.
Camera sequencer, yes.
Yeah.
And so I came into school. I was like, I'm gonna use this. And so yeah, you got to do like every shot in
That's
there, and then you can break it out into individual scenes. And that was probably, I think, one of the hardest parts of the CG process, to be honest, is just getting everything in there and then like organizing it, keeping it organized, shot names, all the cameras, breaking it out into each scene file, and just making sure you have a good base to
Yeah.
build from. Um, so I think that part was tough, but it's super important. And so yeah, I used the camera sequencer, did the layout,
Yeah.
and then animated the film, lit it in Maya, and rendered with Arnold. I broke stuff up into render layers, to help composite a little easier. Not everything was on render layers. I didn't go insane with it. That's one thing where like some people do like a shadow pass, like specular pass, all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
passes.
yeah,
And like I'm like, it takes so much time. You know, the more layers you have, the more control, but it also adds more time to what you're doing. And so for me, it was finding a balance of working fast and still getting some control. So for me, like usually on most shots, I would split up like there's a character like right here, it's me. It's like foreground layer, that's the background layer, and then maybe if there's a there's like a background layer, and then maybe if there's a foreground element, there's like
yeah,
two foreground layers. So I have like three separate layers.
yeah,
But I wouldn't get into like doing a shadow pass. Like I try to get pretty close in Maya, and
yeah.
then after that I would take it into Nuke, and then composite it from there. Like do the depth of field,
Yeah.
little bit of color correction. There was a lot of like muzzle flashes. There was some smoke, stuff like that in Nuke
Oh yeah,
too.
of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's just little final touches. I think lens flares were actually a nice touch
yeah,
to the film, like with the car and other stuff like that. That's something else that's nice, and it adds just a bit of like groundedness to it. It feels a little bit more
yeah.
like reality with that way.
That's cool.
Um, so yeah, so to Nuke from there, then final edit was in Premiere. There wasn't a
Yeah,
lot going in Premiere; it was just dropping in the shots really.
that's
Um,
great.
I think
Uh,
there was. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, sorry, I was just gonna say, like, by the way, we can actually, I have it here.
Oh yeah, go for it.
If you feel like talking over it, or
Yeah,
like,
yeah. You can just let it play, I guess. But
yeah, yeah,
well, yeah, I was just gonna say too with like Premiere. I think another big part was throughout kind of the making of the film. I always had Premiere open, and so I had like my Maya. I was working on Maya. Then the other kind of screen I had Premiere, and this wasn't all the time, but in general, like Premiere was open, and so you know you think of editing maybe as like the last thing you do, but I was editing. I mean, you edit since the beginning, but even during layout, like I was playing with the timing, I was adjusting things during
right.
animation. I was like, you know, I was also working with voice actors, and so like actually that clip right there where he reacts,
Yeah,
Craig, the knife flips out and he goes, "Whoa, hey!" That part,
yeah,
yeah, that's not like the most amazing animation, but like before at the beginning, I told the voice actor to kind of like freak out. So he was like, "Whoa, hey, hey!" Like, and he like did this really big like thing, and
yeah.
and then I did that and I animated it, and it was super over animated, and
Okay.
like, it threw off everything. And, like once I showed it to people, everyone's like, they were like, "That's weird. Like, why does he react like that?" So that was a part where I had to like trim the shot. I had to ask the voice actor to re-record the line and be like, can you do something more subtle? Like, oh, whoa, wait, hey, hold
Yeah,
up a second, something more subtle. And then also I had to redo the animation because it was like big and wild before, and then now it's
yeah.
just like, oh, it's more in the face.
That's great.
Um, so again, it's just like you know, even during the process, you know, you're animating, you're still going to maybe make editing changes. So you have to be flexible. So
That's
you know,
it.
that's kind of a long answer to this question, but it's just
No,
like
no, no.
you got to be flexible in that process because you know there's good notes are going to come up, and I don't think it's a lot of times those notes it'd be better if they were you know that you
Yeah,
adjusted them. So you just have to be flexible. It's tough, but
yeah, exactly. No, and it's fascinating to me to actually hear this because like editing things early is something that I've actually learned over the years.
oh yeah,
Helps you so much to actually just throw, even if it's like storyboards, anything
right,
that you throw up, just to actually, if you actually hold the drawing for a little longer or a little less, it's enough for to actually inform you if the scene is working or it
yes,
isn't, and how
100%.
much time of silence or still that you actually need. Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I think the whole sequence of shots of, like, scene one kind of needs to work like an animation shot, right? It needs to have peaks and valleys. It needs to actually kind of have a nice momentum,
Yeah,
and it needs to be almost like a symphony, like you're actually kind of playing with it. And the only way you can actually truly get it from early on is if you actually go into edit and start extending your clips, you start shortening it, like cutting it
100%.
here, cutting it there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
No, it is that there's a rhythm to it, and like this part where he's backing up and he shoots, and
yeah,
then like there's a pause of silence. Like, yeah, I played with like how long is the pause of silence after the gunshot to where it feels right. You know, I was playing with those things, and like even here when he jumps out of the box, like
yeah,
I played with like this shot right here where it's sideways. Like originally that shot was a lot faster, And so
Right.
I had the play blast in Maya, or
Yeah.
in the play blast in Premiere, and I was like, it goes by too quick. So I just slowed down the whole clip in Premiere. But this was in like the animation phase. And
Hmm.
so I went back into my Maya scene file. I extended the time and stretched out the animation so that it was a slower thing, and it helped the rhythm of everything feel better. So yeah, again, it's like that back and forth of like, oh, this needs to be a little longer. So it's a
That's,
dance. It's a dance between, all these different things for sure.
yeah. No, like honestly, like now that we're watching this again, like I kind of wish that this is like one day this becomes a full length movie.
Oh, nice.
If I like, I was left with a feeling when I saw the box assassin, and
Mhm.
just like the fact that the two hands come out of the pizza box and
Right.
he jumps out of the pizza box. I feel like I want to see him jump out of all kinds of boxes now. Just
Right,
like
right,
give me
right.
an hour and a half of him jumping out of like random boxes.
I'm down for it. Yeah, 100%.
Definitely, man.
It's fun.
Awesome.
It was fun to play with. And I just
Yeah,
like even that whole part right there of him jumping out and all those different shots,
yeah,
that's another great example of editing. Before I had those, it originally was just the guns, and then he jumps out in that shot, and then we cut to the shot you're on right now. I didn't have the close up shot or the looking down shot. I didn't have
yeah.
any of that. And so when I showed it in class for critique, it wasn't really brought up, but I myself felt like, oh, that's not cool enough. I was like, this moment's bland. Like he's coming out of the box. Like it's got to look freaking epic. It's got to like feel
That's it.
cool. And
Yeah,
so I told my professor that. I'm like, yeah, it feels like super lame right now. And then I came back the next class and I had, I tried a bunch of different things. And I took a few out. Like originally there was even more like close ups. Like it was a bit overkill.
yeah,
But that was later on in the process. That was 6 months away from the film being done. It's like I I still was iterating and trying different things even later in that process. So it's just
beautiful, man.
I can't enforce that enough. It's just like the film changed so much throughout the
Yeah,
process.
that's it exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so cool, man. It's really
Thank you.
really
Thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah. The whole shot, the whole mini series. It feels almost like it could be a mini series of events.
Right.
Cigarette box.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's been talked about. Man, it was fun. The pre-production was tough, but it was also fun. I was like,
Yeah,
I remember just brainstorming for different box ideas and how fun that was, just writing down all these lists and playing with that. So it's
yeah,
fun. It's fun for
yeah.
sure.
So
But
cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, Aaron's here. That's cool. Hey, Aaron, how's it going? I don't know if you're still
yeah.
here. You want
Um,
to take another question?
yeah. Let's take another question. Let me just go back to this view.
Let's see.
You want to select one?
Uh, I guess Aaron says, "Do you have any inspiration for cinematography?" It's a little bit later.
Uh,
It's in the newest batch.
in the newest batch, you can actually click on it and click
Can
show.
I?
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe so.
Let's see. Huh. It's not letting me. I don't think.
I'm not letting you.
Yeah. I'm gonna click on it. Nothing
Oh yeah,
happens.
here.
Cool. Um, inspiration for like it's interesting. I think there's like a million great movies. Like to when you're doing a short, when you're doing anything, like I pulled a lot of inspiration from movies, just looking at clips and reference, and I compiled a bit of a reference reel. And like the shots when the boy and the boss guy are in the car and he has the knife to his throat.
Hmm.
I found a scene where there's this hitchhiker, and a kid picks him up in his car and he puts a knife to his throat.
Yeah.
And the cinematography is close. It's not exactly. I didn't copy it one to one. It was a bit older of a movie too, but it gave me a good like idea of maybe where to place the camera.
Is this right?
Yeah, it's that shot exactly. Those like that back and forth because it's like you could shoot that a few different ways. It's like you could have the camera more to the side, you could have it more to the front.
Yeah.
It's just you could play it a lot of different ways. So that gave me like kind of I'm able to almost use reference as a way to iterate even faster. I can look at movie clips and look at all the ways it's been done without spending time doing all this different stuff and get a closer idea of maybe where I want to land. And so it's hard to give specifics, but like even a kind of an odd one is when he comes out of the box and there's all those cool shots, like I didn't pull any shots specifically from anything, but there's a YouTube channel called Quarter Digital. They do a lot of action stuff, and they have a series called Tactical Reloads. And like the whole basis of the series is it's like these cops and they reload their guns, but they do it in the most like over the top ways. So basically, like they'll like pull out a new mag and then they'll like throw it up in the air, it'll spin, and then they'll like hit it with their elbow, and then they'll like catch it with their other hand. So they just like go over the top with these flashy shots. And that's what I reference. I was like, I just want to spice this up because it just makes it look super cool. So, overall, and Corridor does a lot of cool action stuff too. So I knew that was a great place to look to see like, oh, do they spin the camera? Does the camera like track with this? It's like they just get super creative with how they move the camera. So
that is cool.
I think just stuff you like, and then whatever project you're working on, that's what the cinematography is. It's very project dependent. If you're working on a action movie and it's super intense, like reference stuff like that, so I don't know, there's just so much good work out there. I think it's just looking around for different movies to what inspires you.
Exactly. And do you like, going off that question, which was a good question, like
Right.
do you have any heroes that you actually emulate when it comes to actually filmmaking?
That's a big question. I mean, yes, I think it's weird because again, like it's like those are huge ones, those YouTube channels, because that's like what I grew up on. And so they're like action and stuff, and they have a very independent way of making stuff. Like they've been on YouTube making cool videos, and they do it with a small team of people. So they think of creative ways to get around like what big Hollywood movies do. So I really admire that about them. I think Brad Bird is a great filmmaker, and I think
one of my favorites.
And I think he's common. Like a lot of people know his name, and it's maybe a bit generic, but at the same time, I think not him generic, but like everyone knows his name, so maybe it's easy to say. But
what you mean.
I think he approaches animation from a very filmmaking based perspective. In the sense of he's an animator and he does great animation. Has them on like The Iron Giant, like it's great. But like he has a book on storyboarding too, that he wrote while he was doing The Simpsons, I think, and that was super helpful for me. He has like shots of The Simpsons, which is like really cartoony, but then he's like, here's how you take this shot that's kind of flat, and he's like, here's how you make it more cinematic and interesting. And basically, like he just like pulls the camera down some, but even in animation, like you look at The Incredibles, like every composition in the movie The Incredibles is like beautifully framed.
It's incredible.
It's amazing. So Ratatouille is another one of my favorite movies. He thinks about animation as a medium and not as a genre. And I think a lot of people do, but he like emphasizes that as just far as it's another way to tell a story. So like I'm not going to be like in this box of animation, like big cartoony things or this or that. It's not about that to him. It's about telling a story. So I think just that mindset, once like I got that and I've heard him talk about that, I'm like, I think that's the best way to approach it. So absolutely. So
like, and I think, have you seen you must have seen this Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol?
He
directed. I think that just cemented even more exactly that storytelling, like that thing, that because to me that's my favorite Mission Impossible.
I agree.
And looking at every single one of them, at some point to actually binge watch it with my fiance, just because that was also her favorite, but she didn't know why, and I was trying to explain to her why it was so good. And you can tell that he studies the shots that he composes. After he does the storytelling, much more than any other director before that. And the result of it is spectacular, especially that scene on the Burj Khalifa with Tom Cruise. Like you could tell that he must have spent a good 6 months at least, like studying how else can he actually do the shots in the best way possible to actually get the maximum effect and kind of add to the story. And like this is why I actually kind of think that he's one of the best out there, because and when he picked up on Ratatouille as well, right? I mean, he was not the director, and then he picked it up, and then he had to make it better, and then he
Which
became
is
like,
amazing. Yeah, he came in and then made this phenomenal film. And he's even said on Twitter before how like the basis of the film is kind of like weird, and how like if you pitched it to a studio, like it's a rat that makes, I mean, again, like I think people think it's clever nowadays, but I think it's clever because it was done well.
and
And
because he worked exactly.
yeah, because he executed it in a great way.
Yeah,
So, I think you're right too about just like the planning and thought process. It's like, again, if I like Incredibles and Mission Impossible, Ratatouille, even
yeah.
it's very thought out, and that takes time. I think you get better at it, you study it more. If you go to a website, I think it's called Fluby Newbie. It's a weird name, Fluby New. I don't know if I can put it in the chat.
Let me just
Yeah, it's type it in Flooby,
sorry, let me just
or I could put it in the private chat.
like this.
Oh no! Here, I'll type it in here. I think it's something like that. If you type that in Google,
Yeah. Let me just like copy paste.
yeah. For storyboarding, how to draw for storyboarding. I think that's it. Yes, and then
Right.
somewhere on this website, it's a website about storyboarding, but somewhere on this website, there's a breakdown of The Incredibles.
Is that shape on Ratatouille? This is really interesting.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I
Yeah.
think. Okay, here it is. I got it. I'll send you the link in the chat. So this, I found this probably like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I share it with a lot of people because I think it is so impacted me just far as how I think about cinematography and how essential it is to everything. And so basically they just go through the whole film and they break down the compositions.
Oh yeah, he's a big post. Yeah.
It's huge. It goes on forever. It's so long. And so, I mean, if you just go through this, I think you're right. It's just like he's putting in the time. Maybe he's experienced, so now no doubt he does it faster. But he's putting in that time to make sure that these shots and everything, because a big part of, I think, animation and maybe even filmmaking as a whole, like there's obviously like dialogue and talking, but it is a visual medium. And so, to be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with like dialogue and writing scripts. I've been more so in the visual space, and so I'm anxious to learn more about that. But I think like Mad Max Fury Road is a phenomenal example of visual storytelling, and that film was mostly boarded out. If you look back at the process, like I don't think he had a script. I think his script was like they chase each other across the desert, and then they board it out. So I think there's just a certain amount of visual storytelling and visual language that you can learn. That is a great website for it, of just learning how to communicate that. And I think that'll elevate your work so much if you study that. And I think that's what Brad Bird does so well. And
I think any director that actually tries to squeeze out the most of any medium they use, it's an excellent director. And the same thing with Spielberg. Any like J.J. Abrams, same thing. Because they start with a story and they try to squeeze the best story ever. Right. Same Bird, and they have the brain trust in Pixar, and he gets double and triple checked by other people as normal as him.
Exactly.
Like, wish this is good. The story is solid. Then he goes into the path of the visual, and at that point, he starts to squeeze as much as he can, not only as in like the sequence, like we talked about it before, like that rhythm to the whole movie, but also how to actually kind of in each shot make the most out of the shot, so he tells the story the best way possible.
100%. Yeah. And again, like you said, it's the framing, but then it's the editing too. And it's like it keeps going of all these different dances of balancing the rhythm of the story. So it's very complicated, but I think just studying one part at a time, studying some framing, looking at that, studying some editing, it'll all inform each other. But it is like so many moving parts. It's a lot.
It's great. It's beautiful, and this is why it takes a lifetime, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's so much stuff. It's overwhelming.
Yeah. What I like the most about animation and filmmaking in this case, same thing goes for games, is that when you think you're like, I got it. That's it. You cannot get better than this. It's impossible. This is great.
100%.
No, there's so much more for you to learn.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'm excited. There's so much stuff to learn. Yeah. So
for sure, man.
I'm excited. But
Yeah.
Do you want to take any other questions, or were you going for like an hour with the stream, or?
Yeah. I mean, how are you for time?
I'm okay. Yeah, I can take a few more questions. We can maybe go through a few a little bit faster.
Let's do it. You want to select another one, maybe?
Yeah, I can look. This is a quick one from John Blanchett. It says, "Do you use a Wacom tablet? If so, how long did it take to get comfortable with?" Quickly, I don't use one. I'm curious if you use one, Harvey. I've seen people use them. I've heard that they're good for ergonomics, but something good with, I think, mouse is you can swap your mouse out maybe like every few weeks, and I've heard that that's good to like change your wrist position up so it doesn't get. Yeah, for carpal tunnel and stuff. Like I haven't had too much of an issue with it, but I am trying to prepare so that I don't run into that. I might try a tablet at some point. We'll see.
Yeah, like I think it depends on the person. Like I've been using your mouse for years and years, and I never had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I really think that it depends on how you hold the mouse and how you angle your hand. Like naturally, like you forget,
100%. Yeah,
like so focused on your work.
exactly.
So I try to actually get a good chair. Turns out that chairs that have like armrests, for me at least, are really bad. So I have to, because like for most people, like they actually like to have their hands like this, like they say they have it like at a perfect angle, so you can actually kind of wiggle your mouse.
Right.
For me, actually, like it kind of like really damages my muscles here. I ended up like my neck and my head becomes all kind of like bad for days. I had to actually go to the hospital once because of that.
Oh my gosh.
So I find that having chairs that I can remove the armrest is fine, and then having my arm at a certain angle while I actually move the mouse,
right,
it's pretty good. But I found my way of going around it just before I actually had that. But there's people that whenever they have it all the time, a Wacom towel is definitely the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I think it's something to consider if you need to. Yeah. But let's see. Looking for another thing. Do you see another question?
So inspiration for cinematography, you already answered that.
Yeah.
Favorite animation movie?
It's a tough question. I would almost go with Ratatouille. We already talked about it. I think it's just a wonderful balance. Like one of my favorite scenes from the movie is the scene at the river where he has the jar and he's got to let him out. I think it's a really nice balance of just heart and comedy because it's hilarious to me, but it's like the one of the heartstring moments of the movie of just like looking at the glass, and then also just like the him pleading with him. The kid's totally soaked. Just like you feel like, oh, he's down, like he's at the worst low of his life and he's talking to a rat. So I think and how that scene is shot too is wonderful. So I think it's just a beautiful scene of visual storytelling, dialogue, comedy. Like I love that scene so much. So I probably have to go with Ratatouille.
Ratatouille, right?
Yeah. What's yours?
Mine. Can you hear?
Yeah, I can. Do I hear feedback? Maybe a little.
Do you hear feedback?
I think it's gone now.
It's gone.
Yeah, you're good.
For some reason, I can hear myself.
Oh, I can hear you a little bit too. Yeah, it's still going. I don't know.
Still going? It is. Turn it down. Is that better?
Yeah, I think you're good.
My mic. Sorry.
Oh yeah, they hear it too. They say. I think it's better though now. I think turn it down. I think you fixed it.
My head.
Oh wait, no.
Technically.
Echolocation. Like a dolphin. Yeah. Maybe that's it.
No. Yeah. Can you guys hear it?
See what they say.
Yeah.
Is it still there?
I don't. And I don't have it either. I should find it. Becomes so much.
One has to turn their audio off. I mean, I can try to turn. I don't know if it's me. I have headphones in.
Yeah.
Is that better? I turned you down a little bit.
Hello? No, I think it's on my side.
Same side.
Let me change my mic real quick.
Still echo. Yeah, he was fine before. I don't know. This is weird. Aaron says it's getting better.
It's getting better?
They say, but you're understandable.
Okay. Let me see. Hello?
Oh, there's some sort of sound, I think.
Hello? No, still echo. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Hello?
He said that didn't echo. John Blanchett did.
That didn't echo?
I think you're good now. Maybe just try talking for a second.
Hello? Yeah, no, I can hear myself still.
Justin. Hey, Justin, how's it going? He says faint echo, so maybe it's a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I'm not too sure. Maybe we have to actually cut this short because of technical issues.
Yeah.
I was going to say it was Ratatouille as well.
But really?
Yeah, as
well. Well, that's cool. I'm glad to know.
Yeah, and I was going to talk about my favorite scene as well. But hearing myself is distracting me so much.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aaron, for stopping by. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll say hi to Sam too. We'll do. Yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an hour now.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, maybe we could do something else later on or something. But
sure.
Yeah, man. Thanks for taking the time to talk. It's been cool.
No problem. And sorry about the technical issues.
It's all good, man. It happens. But it's been great. It's been great chatting for an hour, so it's been awesome.
No, great to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time and answering all the questions. Once again, all the best at Dreamworks.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, best to you as well.
I have no doubt we're going to have a brilliant career in animation.
Thank you. I appreciate
it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, too. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
See ya.